Hello, and welcome to this edition of Right Now with Rodney. United Way of Central New Mexico is on a journey to become a modern United Way. That means that we model diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are not just buzzwords to us. Diversity is taking into account differences and similarities, what connects us, and what guides us. Equity is about removing barriers. We need everybody's talent. And inclusion is about creating an environment where everyone is able to succeed, to bring all that they have to offer. And we know that to do that successfully, we have to start internally as an organization. And so we've begun our work in that space. And so we're here today with the two co-chairs of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, Hannah Royer and Katie Shaw, who are going to tell us about this work. So let's start with you, Katie. You're passionate about this work, right? You feel it in your soul.
Absolutely.
Why do you do it?
Yeah, thank you, Rodney. It's an honor to be doing this work. First and foremost, I really value equity and the idea of committing our whole hearts and our work to the mission of United Way of connecting people to resources to improve lives and help our community. And I think we can do that in the best way when we do it from a lens with equity and inclusion and diversity at the center and foundation of that work. I personally started this journey of equity learning and specifically anti-racism learning probably about 10 years ago when I was working in Baltimore. And while I was in Baltimore, I worked for a predominantly white college, and we had a ambassador program, and over 50% of the ambassador program were people of color, although the college itself only had a 2% people of color representation, and so it was a skewed representation, and we were called out on that. I worked in the admissions department, and so that really began my work of looking at equity and inclusion.
So Hannah, what's your interest in this work?
So I really started learning more in depth about diversity, equity, and inclusion when I was a Public Ally. And Public Allies is a program that focuses on community organizing and anti-racism work. And through that program, I was able to more effectively learn how to integrate the community's input into diversity, equity, inclusion practices, and also how to authentically engage nonprofits around this work as well. So I really became interested in how to combine the two.
Yeah, I think authentic community engagement is very important. And so we've started our journey internally. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
So initially we started our work really wanting to dive into trainings, and we realized with talking to community experts and trainers in DEI work that we really needed to analyze our internal practices, and it was recommended to us that we hire a consultant. So we sent out an RFP, a request for proposal, and we got a ton of great proposals from consultants, but we decided to work with Soulfire Consulting Group. And not only for their vast experience in organizational development work around DEI, but also because they are a local New Mexico consulting group.
Right.
So we've had the great privilege of working with them through this work, and through Soulfire's work with us, we've been able to do a DEI assessment of the organization with internal focus groups, and also creating a roadmap for where we want to go in the future with this work.
And I think it was instrumental in selecting Soulfire for the reason that you just cited. I think there's a lot of complexities when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in New Mexico in particular. That's a little bit different than most of the country when it comes to that. So, Katie, we're a few months in, right, to this process, and Hannah's laid out certainly the beginning of our journey. Any updates? What's happening right now?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Rodney. Well, personally, I think also it's important to note that we've been utilizing the Equity Toolkit, which was created by United Way Worldwide. And so much of our work and our commitment and also our collaboration with Soulfire Consulting Group came from really skimming through or going in depth with the DEI equity toolkit that United Way Worldwide built for us. I would think of it as a blueprint, as a map, sort of to help guide our work. And within that work too, we really did see that there was a need to create a organizational imperative for why we're doing this work and why it's relevant to the United Way of Central New Mexico specifically. And so, as Hannah mentioned, we created focus groups to kind of get an assessment of how internally we're doing in terms of our diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then with those results, we've been working with Soulfire Consulting Group to build out action plans in terms of how do we engage more staff, how do we really create more diversity within our staff, how do we move forward in a way that grounds our learning around anti-racism and DEI work in general. So I think there's a lot of meaningful work still to be done. This is ongoing. It's kind of what when I was in Baltimore and first learning about anti-racism, I became aware that it's a lifelong journey, that at no point will we be experts in the field or will we have all the answers, that we, especially myself as a white person, will always be on this journey. We'll always be seeking to dismantle white supremacy and racism, how it shows up within our cultures and in our communities, and that in order to really achieve our mission of connecting people with the resources they need, it's wonderful that we have this opportunity to work together ongoing to dismantle those systems of oppression.
And you really mentioned something I think that's important for people to understand, that white people shouldn't be standing on the sidelines, right? We need everybody in the game in order for us to be successful, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely feel it's a deep responsibility of mine and all white people to be doing this work, and not in a way that makes us feel that guilty for being white or ashamed of our past, but certainly that we have a responsibility to do better in the future and to really walk the talk of diversity, equity, and inclusion in all ways.
So what's next, Katie?
Yeah, so right now we're in collaboration with the Albuquerque Community Foundation. We first began a partnership with them around COVID relief a few months ago, and then we're beginning our DEI fund now, and that's already been created. So anybody within the community, companies or donors, can contribute to that fund, and that fund helps support the training and learning opportunities for not just our staff, but for the whole community as a whole. And so different companies can partake in that. We're going to be launching Community Conversations, which is an opportunity for our community at large to come together and really express what's on their minds and what affects them and what they want to see change in our community. And so from those conversations, we'll then be able to have a better sense of how we can affect policy and change going forward. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hannah, did you have anything you wanted to add in terms of what's upcoming?
Yeah, I wanted to add a big next step for our staff is internal trainings. And through our work with Soulfire, we've been able to create an organization learning group, like a work group, to decide what our future learning agenda will be for United Way around DEI. So our plan is to really have DEI trainings that build on each other and that we can integrate with all of our practices at United Way.
That's great. That's really exciting. Where can people find more information if they want to follow us along our journey in this space?
So you could go to UWCNM.org at the How We Help page, and also we will be updating the content regularly too as we go on this DEI journey.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank you, Katie, for both being here with me today for this edition of Right Now with Rodney. You're doing great work in the organization and in the community, and I just want to thank you for joining me today.